Hi, kids. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get started, but I just want to lay out the ground rules real quick. The same ground rules that I laid out earlier today when you were in class. Just remember that in the comment section of Google Classroom, remember that you're only asking questions pertaining to the test review. So you remember the kind of appropriate language that we spoke about. I get notifications of everything that you post. So even if you delete it right away, I'll already have it. So just be really careful of what you say. Remember, other people are watching, and especially me. And so whatever questions you have, whatever help you need on the math review, we can get started. I'm going to turn the camera down so that you can see what's going on down here where I'm solving the problems. So you can see this rather than see my face, okay? So here we go. Oops. Oh, let's see here. Ah, sorry. Okay, so if we do it like that, you should be able to see, and then I can see your questions too. Oops. No. Okay, let me refresh. Okay, so we have our first question. Somebody needs help with number one. So let's go ahead and get on with it. And if I don't have questions, then I guess I can just move on sequentially, like number one, number two, so on and so forth. So number one, if we look at the test review, this is one of the problems that we had in our task cards when we were working on them in class. And so if you have yours out in front of you, you can read along with me. But it goes like this. It took Oscar a total of 302 minutes to watch 2 movies. Okay, so right away, who am I talking about? It's Oscar. Oscar is the subject of my problem. And what did he do? He watched 2 movies, 2 of them. Okay, and it took how long? A total, took him a total of 302 minutes. The first movie lasted 189 minutes. How long was the second movie? Now, you remember with our problem solving process, the very first thing we do is we need to frame up our answer. So there's a question. What we need to do is we need to answer the question, leaving a blank so that we know what we're supposed to end up with. Okay? So we can use the words from the question. How long was the second movie? Well, we can say the second movie was blank, because we don't know yet, minutes long. So there's your sentence frame, and that way you know exactly what you're supposed to end up with. You're supposed to end up with the length of the second movie, okay? The length of the second movie. How long was the second movie? So if we want to see what this looks like, we can draw a strip diagram, and this is where the model drawing comes in. And I know that you guys have already studied model drawing in your other grade levels. So we know the total and we know the length of one of the movies, okay? So if he watched two movies, we can draw a bar that shows us that he watched two movies, 1, 2, and we can even label them movie 1 and movie 2, okay? Well, we already know movie 1, that's 189 minutes. So we can label that on our work 189, okay? We can write minutes here just so you know that we're dealing with the length of time. So if he watched the first movie and that took 189 minutes, well, what else do we know? At the very end, after watching both movies together, the total time that he spent watching both movies was 302 minutes. Okay? So if the total was 302, and you already know one piece of it, well, if you look at this, you know that this block plus this block is going to equal the whole thing. So let's write that. We know that the length of movie 1 plus the length of movie 2 is going to give you the total. And we already know two of those pieces. We know that movie 1 was 189 minutes. We don't know movie 2, so we still have to leave that blank. The total was 302 minutes, so we can write that in. And there's our problem. So 189 minutes plus blank equals 302 minutes. So how are we going to figure this out? What do we need to do to figure out this blank? Okay, have you thought about it? Maybe you've already written it down. Well, if I have 302 minutes, how am I going to figure this out? I need to subtract, okay? So in order to find the missing piece, I'm going to have to subtract to find this blank right here. So I'm going to take 302 and I'm going to subtract 189. Line up the place values, okay? The ones are lined up, the tens are lined up, the hundreds are lined up, so we're good. So let's go ahead and do our subtraction. Well, I have 2 here, and I have to take away 9. If I only have 2, do I have enough to take away 9? No. So I need to borrow or regroup. But can we borrow from nothing? No. Okay, so we need to make this something so that this can borrow. Okay? So let's take away from the 3. We're going to borrow from the 3. That's going to become a 2. So that this can now become a 10. I'm just going to mark it out and write it up here. So I had to make this something so that I can continue to borrow to start my subtraction. So the 2 still needs to borrow. So I'm going to mark that out. I'm going to borrow from the 10. We're going to make that a 9. And so when we regroup, we're going to add 10 to this one. So 10 plus 2, that's 12. Okay, so now we can start our subtraction. I have 12 and I need to take away 9. How much is that? It's 3. And then 9, take away 8. That's 1. And then I have 2, take away 1. That's 1. So my answer, I have 113. Okay, so when I did my subtraction, 302 minus 189 is 113. Well, how can I check that that's right? Well, we had this problem here, 189 minutes plus something is going to give us 302. Well, why don't we take this 113 and we fill it in here? If we fill it in, we should be able to add 189 and 113 and get that answer. So let me just try it really quick. 189 plus 113. 9 plus 3 is 12. So that's a regrouping situation. So we're going to write down the 2, regroup the 1, 8, 9, 10. Regroup, 1, 2, 3. And look at here. We got the same answer as what the original problem gave us. So we know that our math was correct. So the second movie, movie 2, was 113 minutes. So the second movie was 113 minutes long. And that's your solution. Okay, what you've got to remember is with model drawing, you need to draw it so that it makes sense. So if he is watching 2 movies, you've got your 2 blocks to show the representation of the length of movie 1 and the length of movie 2. Okay, and the problem gave you the total, 302 minutes. So that means you've got an addition problem with the solution being 302 minutes long. Okay? So later, when you're working this out yourself, it looks like I need to focus a little bit. Let me see if I can bring this in a little bit closer. Let me play with this just a little bit, see if I can make it a little bit more clear. If I can't, then I'll just move it back. But from when I say things until when you see things on YouTube, there's a little bit of a delay, so it takes a couple of seconds. I'm just going to take a little bit slower than I normally do. Okay. Are you having trouble seeing the numbers? Emilion and David, if you can hear me, type in the chat whether or not it's really fuzzy. If I need to write bigger, I can write bigger. Okay, it looks like let me just write bigger and I'll use a marker instead. Maybe that will help a little bit with the fuzziness. Okay, so I don't have any specific questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and move on to number 2. Okay. Mrs. Anderson says turn off one of the lights. So I'm going to go try doing that. Is that better? Can you see better now? Is this better or worse? Okay, so we'll just keep it like this. I'm going to go ahead and move on to number 2. Okay, and just remember, kids, if you're just now tuning in, you can watch this again all weekend long if you want to. You can go back to the beginning. You can rewind it and watch me work this out as many times as you want. So if you have a question or if you want to see a step again, then just rewind it and you'll be able to watch it as many times, okay? Over and over and over again. So here we go. Let's move on to number 2. I'm just going to go ahead and turn the page. I'm just going to do this. Okay? But let's read number 2. Allison recorded the length of her jogging for 5 days in this table below. She accidentally got part of it wet and lost some information. What was the length of her run on Thursday if the total number of miles for the 5 days is 37 miles? So we've got a table here. And so what I can do is the first thing we need to do definitely is we see the question. We need to frame our answer first. The question asked, what was the length of her run on Thursday? Okay, so Thursday from the table, that's the one that's blank. So what we're going to do is we're going to answer that with our sentence frame. We use the wording from the question to write our sentence frame so that everything will make sense later. What was the length of her run on Thursday? So we answer that like this. The length of her run on Thursday was blank miles. Okay? The length of her run on Thursday was blank miles. So I've answered the sentence frame. I've answered the question with my sentence frame. I'm going to leave that blank so I can fill it in later. Okay? So let's look at our model. We already have something very good already on the paper. Okay? I can already tell the marker is working a lot better. So I'm just going to make a really quick one. Okay? There are 5 days. So I'm going to make a bar, and I'm going to make 5 days worth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Okay? So anytime you're having something where you have a total, where is it? Here it is. It says the total number of miles. So you know you've got a whole bunch of things put together, and it's going to give you a combined number. Sometimes you're going to find the combined number. Sometimes the problem will go ahead and give it to you. So in this case, it gives us the total, and then we have to find the missing piece. So on Monday, she ran 6 miles. Tuesday was 7. Wednesday was 4. Thursday, we don't know. Friday, she ran 13 miles. Okay? Now we know the total already. The problem gave us the total. The total was 37 miles. Okay? MI is the abbreviation for miles. So even though I wrote miles up here, I can write it quickly by abbreviating it MI. And that's what this is in here. So, what am I going to do now? If I know the total is all of the days combined, then I probably could add all of these up to get 37. So let's add them up. 6 plus 7 plus 4 plus something plus 13 is going to equal, squeeze it, 37. Okay? So I can kind of simplify this a little bit. Look, some of our mental math strategies are coming into play here. I know 6 and 4 make 10, so I can make a 10 here. 7 and 13, well, 7 and 3 make 10, plus 13 was already there. That makes 20, plus something that I don't know, that's Thursday, is going to equal 37. Well, now I've got an addition problem I can do very easily. 10 plus 20, that's 30, plus something is going to equal 37. So here we have 30 plus something equals 37. So how am I going to figure out what this something is? That's Thursday, remember. So how do we figure out this blank? Just like in the other problem, we can subtract to figure out this missing piece. So I can do 37 minus 30, line up the place values, and that's going to give me this missing piece. So 7 take away 0, that's 7. And then 3 take away 3, well, that's 0, or I can just leave that. Or I can just write 0. Okay? So I've got 7. 30 plus 7 is 37. Is that true? Yeah. Okay, so I know my math is right because I can add back and get that original number 37. So this one that goes in the blank, that one was Thursday. So 7 goes in the blank here. So Thursday was 7 miles. The length of her run on Thursday was 7 miles. Okay? That's really good. Okay? So if you can draw a model, or if you get a table and you can make the model a little bit more simple, then you can see your math problem very easily. Okay? So what I've been trying to tell you guys to do is to slow down, take your time, and really try to understand what's going on in this problem. So if you look at it as a table and you see the missing piece, you can add up the rest and see what else you need to add to make this total number. Okay? All right, so I have another question from Mia. She needs help on number 3. So luckily, we just finished number 2. If you need to see this again, remember when the live stream is over, you can just rewind, look back at this problem, and you can watch me work it out all over again. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move on. And let's look at number 3. Thank you, Mrs. Anderson. Hope you have a good weekend. Mrs. Anderson is signing off now. She's had enough math fun for today. But now it's just you and me. So let's look at number 3. Randy wants to buy 3 games that cost $11.57 each. So there's 3 games. He also wants to buy another game that costs $4. So there's another game. Okay? There's $11.57, $4. In his wallet, Randy has 4 $10 bills. Does he have enough money to buy the games? Well, let's see how we can approach this. The question, I'm sorry I used a period. Glad Miss Anderson's not here. I used the wrong punctuation in a question. It should be a question mark. But it says, does he have enough money to buy the games? Well, how do you answer that question? When I ask you, do you have enough money? You might say yes or no. But how would you answer that question using the words from the question? You would say, I have enough money. I don't have enough money. Well, here we're talking about Randy. So let's talk about Randy. Randy and blank, you'll either write has enough money or doesn't have enough money. And we're just going to finish it with enough money. So here you're going to fill in has enough money or doesn't have enough money. Okay? So let's see what we're looking at here. How many games does Randy want to buy? You read through the question yourself. You decide, how many total games does Randy want to buy? Did you say 3? Well, Randy wants to buy 3 games, and they each cost $11.57. But did you also see this part? On top of the 3 games that he wants another game. So if he wants 3 plus another one, how many games is that? 3 plus 1, that's 4. So Randy's going to buy 4 games, okay? So I'm going to make my model with my 4 games. This is game 1, game 2, game 3, and game 4. Okay, are you working this out on your paper as well? Make sure you're doing it. So if we've got our 4 games, we're going to write in how much money each one is going to cost. So how much is, let's look back at the problem. It says 3 of the games are $11.57. So 1, 2, 3, let's make those $11.57. Okay? Well, there's game 4. How much is game 4? Game 4 is $4. So we're going to write that in here. Okay? If you want to, you can put the dollar signs. Okay? $11.57 for 3 games and another game for $4. So if he were to buy all 4 games, we need to know how much money he needs. How are we going to figure out how much money he needs? Look at this. Think about our other models that we've seen so far. We need to find the total. How much money will he need in all? Okay. So, how are we going to find the total? From the 3 games plus the additional game. How did we find the total in the other 2 problems? We had to add them up. So let's add these together. Now I've got a decimal here. And you remember what we've been saying. When you have the decimal, it's really important to, oh, good job, Emilion. I see your little comment. Yes, we do need to add them all together. So you've got decimals here. So what do we need to do before we add decimals? Do you guys know? I hope you said make a place value chart. So I've got 2 place values behind the decimal, 2 place values ahead of the decimal. So let's make our decimal first. What are the 2 place values behind the decimal? I hope you know. There you go, Emilion. Place value chart. Tenths and hundredths. And what are these 2 place values right in front of the decimal? It's the ones and the tens. Okay? So you've got 2 place values behind the decimal, 2 place values ahead of the decimal, and your decimals in the middle. So let's go ahead and make our place value chart. Okay, don't skip this step. You guys know you need it. Line everything up. So let's fill these in first. Okay, from the decimal, I can fill in there and behind the decimal. So let me do that 3 times because there's 3 games. Okay, so that's game 1, game 2, game 3. Okay, well, there's the 3 games, but I can't forget about this. Now look at this 4. This one's a little bit different than the other 3 numbers. Does it have any decimals? Four doesn't have any decimals. So what does that mean? Do you guys know? When the 4 doesn't have any decimals, where do we write this 4? Are we going to write it right here? If we write it right here, then that would mean you have this. But is that the number that's in here? No. The number in there doesn't have any decimals or zeros ahead of it. So where are we going to write that 4? We've got to put it in the ones place, okay? Because the 4 is a whole number, there's no decimals in there, so you can assume that it's a whole number that goes in the ones place. You can fill in the decimal and the zeros if you want to. That way everything kind of lines up nicely and neatly. Here's game 4. And then you can add them all up. So here we go. Let's add them all up. 7 plus 7 plus 7. Well, can you count by sevens? It's 21. And then 5 plus 5 plus 5. We can count by 5s, 5, 10, 15, 16, 17. Okay, regroup the 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oops, almost forgot my decimal. And then 1, 2, 3. So my answer is $38.71. Okay? $38.71. So, is that the answer? If we were to take $38.71, would this make sense at all? Randy, $38.71 enough money. Does it make sense? Say that to yourself. So if somebody were to tell you about Randy, $38.71, does that make any sense to you? No, because it doesn't. So that means we're not done with our work. So let's look back at the question and see what it was asking. Does he have enough money to buy the games? Well, what is this $38.71? $38.71 was the sum after you added everything up. Oh, that's the total. The total amount of money for all the 4 games is $38.71. Okay, but that's not what the question is asking. The question wasn't asking what's his total. The question was asking, does Randy have enough money? So, how much money does Randy have? Well, the problem tells us. Look in the problem and see if you can find out how much money Randy has. Can you type it in? How much money does Randy have? Do you see it in the problem? In his wallet, Randy has four $10 bills. Well, how much money is that? How much money is four $10 bills? Well, if we draw them, we see the four $10 bills. How much money is that? 10, 20, 30, 40. He's got $40. So, if Randy has $40, if Randy has $40, but the total of the games is $38.71, does he have enough money? If you wanted to buy games and it cost $38.71, would you have enough money? Well, let's see. When you want to buy something, you want to make sure that you have more or the same amount as what that thing costs. Because if you have less than what that thing costs, will the store let you buy it? Probably not. So let's compare. We want Randy to have more or the same amount of money as what his games cost. So let's compare 40 and $38.71. Okay, which one is more? Okay, Randy has more money than what his games cost. It's good, Mia, I see you. Since he has more money than what the games cost, then Randy does have enough money. So Randy has enough of money. Okay? And that makes more sense than if we were to just fill in $38.71 right here. You have to make sure that you are answering the question. That's where the sentence frame is so important. So if you start off by answering the question, leaving a blank, you'll know when you're finished with your work. Okay? That's why we make you answer the question first, so that you're not finishing too early. Okay? Push through. Get everything done. All right, so I see we have a question on number 5. Oh, that's all right. Welcome. We just got through a few problems, but if you're just now joining us, that's okay. At the end of the live stream, this video will be saved in my channel, so you're more than welcome to watch as many times as you want to all weekend, okay? So you can join and leave at any time you want, and this video will always be available. That way, it's not just the 5 o'clock. Right now, I'm answering live questions, but if you can't make it or, something happens and you need to leave early, that's okay. You can just watch it later. And I'll send out the links to that later too. Okay? So let's see here. Somebody had a question about number 5. I saw Leah had a question on number 5, so let me just go ahead and go here so I can address it. Let me just circle these to show that I finished those. But here's number 5. Ryan needs to build a rectangular frame that measures that measures 3 and 20 hundredths of a feet by 2 and 25 hundredths feet. He has a piece of wood that measures 20 feet. If he cuts the piece of wood to make the frame, how much would he have left over? Okay, so first we've got to answer the question. So let's look at the question first and see how can we use the wording from the question to give our answer. The question was asking, how much would he have left over? Okay, so let's use that wording to frame up our answer. How much would he have left over? He, who is Ryan, blank feet of wood left over. Try to be as specific as possible in your sentence frame. I will. At the very end of the live stream, I'll say that it's over, and then you'll see the screen go black. But it will take some time for the, I'm sorry, for those of you that can't see the chat, there was a student who asked me to tell everyone to announce when the live stream is finished, and I will, and you'll see the screen go black, and it's going to take probably a couple of hours for the video to encode and go on my channel. So there's a little bit of a delay, but you'll be able to watch it over the weekend. But anyway, let's get back to the problem. Be as specific as possible when you're using your sentence frame, okay? So you want to say as many words as you can from the question. And it did mention things about wood. How much would he have left over? And his name is Ryan, okay? So I've got my sentence frame here. So I know that I'm going to have a number that represents the feet of wood that's left over, okay? So you've got to picture, what is it that he's doing? What's he doing? He's making something. He's making a frame. A frame kind of like this. Let me grab one real quick. So here's an example of a frame that is a rectangle. Okay. So he's going to make something like this, where he knows the measurement of the sides, but he's got to build it. Okay. He can't just cut it out like this. Okay. So how much wood does he have? The problem tells us how much wood he has. Can you see it? How much wood did he start out with? He started out with 20 feet. He has a piece of wood that measures 20 feet. Okay, so let's draw that piece of wood that he has. Let's draw that piece of wood. Okay, how long is that piece of wood that he has? Well, you know that that piece of wood is 20 feet. Okay, this is what he has. What he needs to make is a rectangular frame. So I'm going to make a little note here. He needs to make a rectangular frame, just like that one that I showed you. And the problem tells us exactly how long each of the sides are. Do you know how long the sides are? Okay, well, let's look at the problem. It says that it measures 3 and 20 hundredths by 2 and 25 hundredths. So let's label the sides. This is the shorter side, 2 and 25 hundredths. This side is 3 and 20 hundredths feet. And you know on a rectangle, if this side is 2 and 25 hundredths, how much is this side? On a rectangle, opposite sides are the same. So this side is also 2 and 25 hundredths feet. Oops. This side on top is also 3 and 20 hundredths feet. Okay? So what do? If he's making something with each of these things that long, what does he need to do with this piece of wood? He's got to take each side and he's got to measure it out on this piece of wood so that he can cut it. Because he hasn't made this yet. He needs to cut out from the wood that he has to make these sides. So how many sides does the rectangle have? It's got 4 sides. So let's cut some. 2, 3, 4. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. 2 pieces are 3 and 20 hundredths of a foot. 2 pieces are going to be 2 and 25 hundredths of a foot. So, do we know how much this piece is? No. This is our leftovers. Okay? So after he cuts up everything, how much is he going to have left over? Well, we don't know. We're still trying to figure that out. So, what are we going to do? How did we figure out a missing piece when you knew some of the pieces and the total? Well, let's add up what we've got. Okay, we've got decimals here, so let's make a place value chart. There's 1 place value ahead of the decimal, 2 behind the decimal, so I can do this. Ones, decimal, tenths, and hundredths. Let's make our place value chart here. And let's fill our numbers into the place value chart. Hi, Caleb. So we've got the 4 sides here. We know that if we add the missing piece, then we'll have 20 feet. But we don't know the missing piece, do we? Okay, so let's add up and see what we've got so far. This 5 plus 5 is 10. I have to regroup. 2, 4, 6, 8 plus 1 is 9. Don't forget my decimal. 3 plus 3 is 6, 8, 10. So this is an answer that I got when I added these 4 together. So I know that this part right here is 10 and 90 hundredths. Not the whole thing, just the 4 sides put together, okay? The 4 sides put together will give me 10 and 90 hundredths. Well, I know that's less than 20. 10 is less than 20. So if I use up 10 and 90 hundredths feet of wood, how much am I going to have left over? Well, we know that this much plus the leftover chunk is going to give you 20 feet. Let me just kind of scoot this up a little bit. So, whoops. I know that I can take 10 and 90 hundredths, add that leftover chunk, and that's going to give me 20 feet. Well, how am I going to find this? Just like in our other problems, when we're adding a missing piece, we can subtract to find that missing piece. And I see I'm kind of running out of space, so I'm going to go ahead and flip to the next page and we'll come back, okay? We'll flip to the next page to do our subtraction and we'll come back here. So I'm just going to copy the problem over. We know we need to subtract, but we've got a whole number and a decimal. So my advice to you is when you've got decimals involved, go ahead and make your place value chart. So let's make it. I've got 2 places ahead of the decimal and 2 places behind the decimal. So let's make our decimal here. 2 places ahead, ones and tenths. 2 places behind, that's tenths and hundredths. Okay. Now, we know we need to subtract. So, we need to subtract what he's going to use from what he's got. Use for frame what he has. So, if he's going to use it, we need to take it away from what he has. Does that make sense? So, let's take 10 and 90 hundredths away from 20. That means we need to fill in 20 first. Okay? So, where does 20 go? I don't see a decimal, so that means it's a whole number. Whole numbers are ahead of the decimal, so we're going to go ahead and fill in our 20 up here. Okay? If you want to, which you probably should, go ahead and put in your decimal and your 2 trailing zeros. We're going to subtract what he's going to use for the frame. Okay, so when we subtract, we're going to start all the way over here so that if we need to regroup, we can. Well, I can take 0 away from 0. That one, 0. But now I have 0. Can I take 9 away? This is where a lot of you made a mistake when you were working on it in class. Can you take 9 away from nothing? I've got nothing in my hand right now. Can I give you anything? No. You cannot take 9 away from nothing. So, what do you need to do? Do you know? Can't take 9 away from nothing. So, you need to regroup. So, we're going to have to borrow. Can I borrow from nothing? No, we saw that before. So, we're going to go ahead and borrow from the 2. That's going to become a 1. but we're going to add 10 to the next place value. So this actually becomes a 10. But now we still don't have anything over here. This one now can borrow because this has 10 instead of nothing. So I'm going to take from the 10, I'm going to make that a 9. And I'm going to add 10 here. 10. Now I have 10. Can I take away 9? 10 take away 9. If I had 10, take away 9. How much do I have left? I've got 1. Okay. Don't forget my decimal. 9, take away nothing. If I have 9 and I take away nothing, I still have 9. And 1 take away 1, that's 0. Okay. So 9 and 1/10, or 9 and 10/100ths. That's this piece right here. So what does that blank mean? Do you remember what that blank means? We wrote it over here. This blank is how much is left over. And well, we just figured that out because we were able to fill in this blank, 9 and 1/10. So the leftover is 9 and 1/10. And then we look back here. Ryan will have blank feet of wood left over. How much? 9 and 1/10. Okay? So the question was asking how much wood will Ryan have left over after he makes the frame? Okay? He's got 9 and 1/10 left over. And that's it. So it seems complicated, but after you make the model, you can see everything. You know how much he's going to use for the frame. You know you've got to find what's left over. And once you get here, you can fill in your sentence frame and then you'll be done. Okay? If you need to watch this again, wait until after the end of the live stream, and you can watch this as many times as you want. Work through it. Write everything down. Draw all the models. Make your place values. Add, subtract, do all of your regrouping. Do it while I'm doing it, and then try doing it yourself. Okay? So I'm going to let the video catch up, and I'm going to see if anybody has any more questions. So I'm still here, even though I'm going to be quiet for a second. Okay, so if there's no more questions about problem 5, I'm just going to move on to whatever question I want to. Let's see here. Is there anything you guys want me to work out? A lot of these were the model drawing problems with addition and subtraction. But towards the end, we had a lot more decimals. So is there anything you want to see? How about we do this one right here? Let's see. How about we go over this one again? Number 10. How many times greater is the value of the digit 5 in 583,607 than the value of the digit 5 in 362,501? We worked a problem out like this in class today. And we've done a couple of problems earlier. So I reminded you that there is a problem like this on the test review. So let's see if you can figure this out. I'll work through it with you. Okay, let me get some blank pages in here. So I'm going to work out number 10. This one, because this one can cause a lot of confusion. But basically, you've got 3 steps. When you're dealing with place-value relationships, okay, what you need to focus on is how far is one place value from the other place value. So you're comparing 2 place values, okay? So right away, you've got the first step as filling in a place value chart with the numbers, okay? So you fill both numbers into your place value chart, and then the problem with place value relationships is it's always going to tell you to focus on a specific digit, okay? So your digit, whether it's 4 or 9, it's going to appear once in one number and again in another number. So what is that? You've got to find out where is that digit in the place value chart. Determine the place values you're working with. Oh, hold on just a minute. Okay. Determine the place values you're working with. Okay. So after you've determined what you're working with, then you need to count your number of shifts. How many shifts will it take to get from one place value to the next? Count the number of shifts. Okay? And then, once you figured out how many place values you shift over to get from one to the other, then you'll know what your answer is going to look like. So, the number of shifts is going to equal the number of zeros in your answer. And we'll explain that in just a minute. Okay? But very simply, the number of shifts is going to tell you how many zeros are in your answer. So I've got these steps here. for figuring out place value relationships. So let's look at number 10. It's asking you to look at the digit 5. So we've got 583,607, 362,501. First thing we need to do is, as our step said, is we need to fill in the place value chart with those two numbers. So let's make one real quick. I know you can make one really fast now. Okay, so there's my place value chart. And let's fill in those two numbers. Let's fill in 583,607. And then let's fill in 362,501. Okay? So once you have this, then what do? Well, what digit is it asking us to look at? Do you guys know? The problem says we're looking at the 5. So if I circle the 5, that'll give me my focus. Well, one of the 5s is in what place value? There's one right there. It's in the hundreds place. The other 5 is in what place value? Right here. Okay, so we know we're working with the hundreds place and the 100,000s place. So what's the next step? From here to here, we've got to count how many shifts do we make to go from the hundreds to the 100,000s? Well, let's see. 1, 2, 3. Okay? So if I were to take this and I wanted to shift it over, what would I have to do? I'd have to multiply that times 10 to get this 5 to shift over here. Well, if I wanted it to shift again, I would have to multiply that times 10 again. And if I wanted to go all the way to the 100,000s, I would have to multiply times 10 again. So, if I wanted to go from the hundreds place to the 100,000s place, that's 1, 2, 3 shifts, okay? So you multiply times 10 3 times. Well, our steps say that the number of shifts are going to equal the number of zeros in your answer. So if the question was asking, how many times greater is the value of the digit 5 in this number than that number? Well, how many times greater? How many zeros do we have? How do we know? We count the number of shifts. There's 3 zeros because there are 3 shifts. We were multiplying times 10, so that 1 needs to be there. So the 5 in the 100,000s is 1,000 times greater than the 5 in the hundreds place. Okay? So once you've got that, that's your answer. Just remember that every time you shift over one, it's because I multiplied times 10. And when I multiplied times 10, I had to regroup to the next place value. That means I need to put a 0 in the place value that it left behind. Okay? And this, if I shift it again by regrouping, I need to add another 0 to hold that place value. If I need to regroup again, I need another 0 to hold that place value. And that's why you have so many zeros. 3 shifts, 3 zeros. Okay, 5 shifts, 5 zeros. 1 million shifts, 1 million zeros. Okay, so go over this problem and the one from the problem we solved this morning and see if you can do some of these yourself. Okay, so let's keep going. Let's do a regrouping one. I think Leo was asking about regrouping. Let's look at number 11. One number has 4 thousands, 12 hundreds, and 0 tenths. Another number has 4 thousands, 6 hundreds, and 5 tenths. What are the two numbers? And how do they compare? So, let's look at number 11. I'm going to turn my page. Okay, so if we've got these, what we've got to do, first things first, is go ahead and make your place value chart. Okay, so number 11, it tells you what to put in. So let's do it. Ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, and let's go up to, oops, sorry. This is the ones period, this is the thousands period. Okay, so let's look at these instructions here. 0 tens, so we can put 0 here. 12 hundreds. Oh, we know we can't do that. So let's regroup. 1 up here. And 4 thousands. Okay, so this is one number. So we know there's 0 here, 2 here. 4 plus the one we regrouped. 4 plus 1 is how much? It's 5. So the first number, it's not 520. Remember, you've got this empty place value here. What do you do with it? Got to add a 0 to hold its place. Okay? We don't want any empty place values. Okay, good. So we've got this. Now let's go to the other number. Another number has 4 thousands, 6 hundreds, and 5 tens. So let's start from the smallest one. 5 tens, 6 hundreds, 4 thousands. We didn't need to regroup, but can't forget this. There it is. So what are the two numbers? We've got 5,200, and then the other number is 4,650. How do they compare? Well, which one is bigger than the other? Remember, we compare from left to right. So if we look at the first place value, we know that 5 is more than 4, so we can stop right there. 5,200 is greater than 4,650. So what you've got to remember is when you're trying to cram in 2 digits into a single place value, try cramming it first and you'll see right away that you need to regroup. Okay? Just like what I did. I know I can't cram 12 in here, so I'm going to go ahead and regroup to the next place value. Okay? So Let's look at number 12, because this one's a little bit different than what we talked about in class. And I haven't gotten a chance to go over it with you yet. Well, let's look at number 12. Sabrina rounded the size of a park to the nearest 1,000 acres. Her estimate was 276,000 acres. What number could be the exact number of acres? Okay, well, we've got a rounding example. With rounding, let's see here. She gave you her rounded answer, 276,000, okay? $276,000. She rounded to the nearest 1,000, okay? Says here that she rounded to the nearest 1,000. So, if we're trying to find out the exact number, we've got to find out what numbers would round to 276,000. Well, what would you be looking at? You would, if we're rounding to the nearest 1,000, that's the 1,000 place value right here. Well, what digit would we be circling? It would be this one right here. So, in rounding, there are two options. You could keep the number the same, or you could increase it by 1, okay? In what situations would the circled number allow you to keep it the same? If you need to, look in your rounding wrap. If the circled digit is between 0 and 4, you can keep that digit the same. But if the circled digit was between 5 and 9, you would get to increase this underlined digit. But what you've got to remember is this is her answer. So let's see here. If I had kept this the same, what are some numbers that could be here that would have kept this 6 the same? We know it's between 0 and 4, so we could do 276,000. Okay, with any digit here. It doesn't matter what you put in here. You could say 99 if you wanted to. It would still round to 276,000. So I'm just going to leave those two blank because you can fill in any numbers you wanted to in the back, because this is the digit that's important right here. Okay? What else? You could have 276,100 something. Anything could be here. And it would still round to 276,000 because this is the digit that determines whether or not this stays or if it increases. Next, 276,200 something. Okay. 276,300 something. 276,400 something. But when I go up to 276,500 something, what would happen to the 6? Because it's a 5 here, the circle digit, if it's between 5 and 9, this digit would have to be increased. So this would round to 277,000. So this one could not be a possibility. So all of these would be something that you could round to 276,000. But there's more, because if you think of this as the answer, she could have increased this digit to 6. From what to 6? She could have increased it from 5 to 6. Well, in what situations? Let's look at 275,000. What digit would need to be here in order for this to go up to 6? Well, if we want to increase this underlined digit, then the number inside the circle needs to be between 5 and 9. So it can be 275,500 something. I could even say 500. It doesn't matter what's here, because the digit inside of the circle is what determines what happens to the underlined digit. So if this is 5, the circle digit is between 5 and 9, so we increase the underlined digit. So this rounds to 276,000, which is exactly what's her name? Sabrina had estimated. So, yes, Emilion, I see you say it has to be 5 or more. So that means 275,600 something, 275,700 something, 275,800 something, and 275,900 something, all the way up to 275,999. I see that's too low. Let me just kind of bring it up. Okay, so all of these will round to 276,000, which is what Sabrina estimated. Okay, so it doesn't matter what's here in the last 2 digits, because the one that you're looking at is the one inside of the circle, okay, to the right of the digit that you're rounding to. So all of these will round to that number, 276,000. So you could have written all of these numbers down and you would have been right. Any of them, they would have been right. Okay? It didn't say she rounded up or rounded down. She just said she rounded the size of the park to the nearest 1,000 acres. So the size of the park could have been any of these sizes right here. So you've got to see, sometimes they start off by giving you the rounded answer, and you've got to decide, well, what did she start out with? Okay, today in class we talked about who was right, who was wrong. But here you can see there are so many possibilities for correct answers. It's not just one. Okay, so be careful, take it slow. It's a lot. All right, so I'm actually not feeling all that good. I think I've got a headache coming on, so I think we've done about an hour and a half of working through problems. I'm going to go home for a little bit, and if I feel better, then I'll announce on the Google Classroom that I can have a session at what time, sometime this weekend. It looks pretty good, but at home, when I'm at home, the setup will be a little bit different. I'll probably have to bring home a whiteboard or something so that I can work out problems for you. But just kind of tune in. If you still need help on some of these problems in the math review, then you can keep checking back at the Google Classroom and see, okay, if I post anything new about joining the live stream chat. Otherwise, for these problems that I worked out today, in a little while after the session is over, then you have to wait just a bit, and then on my channel you can keep checking back. You can watch the video as many times as you want, work out the problems yourself, watch it to check, or work it alongside me as I'm doing it with you, or just however. If you have questions and I'm not online, you can post them in the Unit 1 and 2. Just remember, academic vocabulary only. We're not going to say, hey, yo, what's up, or anything inappropriate like that. Um, so you can ask your peers and friends if you're online and you see questions and I'm not answering, then maybe you can attempt to answer too. Okay. And I'll keep checking back and I'm going to post. Um, I'm going to post whether or not we're going to have another live chat session. So just stay tuned. In the meantime, though, go ahead and try to do the review yourself. Prepare as much as you can. And I'll see you guys on Monday. Bye bye.